And we're back again, Echo Church Podcast. Woo! Wow, welcome back to another week. I lost count of the weeks, but another week. Is it week
number
4?
5?
Is it 5?
Number 5.
Isn't it 5?
It's 5.
I'm pretty sure it's 5.
Yeah.
See, that's why we got to stop counting. Yeah. See, Joe, me and you aren't counters.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Like, this is an amazing and long overdue. Our senior pastor. Do we call you senior pastor? Do we call you our pastor?
Pastor.
He
Paul,
is the man, other than Jesus, obviously. He is the man at Echo Church. We're so excited to have Pastor Paul Firestein with us.
It's good to be with you.
Great.
Looking forward to our time together.
This is the best. I'm not gonna talk. I hope you know that.
Well,
I've come to listen.
My answers might be short. So.
I'm gonna ask. I have a lot of questions, but today actually we're gonna talk about marriage, and what we're gonna do is you preached a message last week, it'll be last week. Yeah, You preached a message on marriage, and it was very, 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 very great. I told Austin this. We were talking, and it was like, man, I feel like the Lord does use us. But what the Lord doesn't give us? Wisdom and experience. And I feel like that message was so biblical and so truth-filled, but then it was also coming from someone that clearly has a ton of wisdom and experience in it. And it's just good to hear from you. So I just want to talk about it a little bit more.
It's good. I'm looking forward to it. Definitely stirred up some conversations last
for
week.
Sure. We had quite a few conversations. So it's worth revisiting.
Yes.
For sure. So I'm excited for that. We do have our fact checker, Lucas, here. Yeah, Lucas.
All right,
what's
Lucas.
up? Hi. Appreciate you, dog. So he may interject and tell us if we're right or wrong about something, which you better confirm that we're right. Amen. All right. So I'm messing. We're going to start out with some fun questions. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. How long have you, well, first of all, who's your wife?
My wife's Amy.
Miss Amy,
So
okay.
you see her kind of behind the scenes here and there, and out in the lobbies.
Yeah.
And
Miss Amy's the best.
She's awesome.
Mama Amy is so sweet.
Yep,
She's hilarious.
And she's very funny, and she never stops.
She's hilarious.
Yes.
I love Miss Amy. If you haven't had a chance to meet her at Echo Church, you should probably meet her.
Yes.
And you will get into a great conversation.
You will, guaranteed. You won't forget her.
Yeah. It was the best conversation. How long have you and Miss Amy been
We've been married 35 years this year in January.
Now, you do know that's older than me, right?
Yes, I do.
Now, how does that feel? Not in a calling you old way, but isn't it crazy?
You kind of are.
I'm not calling you old, but I'm not. But I was thinking about this. I was showering this morning, and I was thinking about this podcast, and I was like, man, he's been married over 30 years. I'm turning 30, and I'm like, I can't fathom being committed to something.
Yeah.
Longer than my lifespan. So I know that it's calling you old, and I'm trying not to, but how is that? That.
Yeah, I mean, crazy. It is kind of crazy. I don't think I don't think we thought about it that way. Okay. We were so in love with each other. Yeah. But obviously you go through things it is definitely a commitment. Yeah. And we said, well, I think I told the story on Sunday, my wife crying in the living room floor when we were first married and being upset and saying, we're both healthy and we're not going to die for a long time, and divorce is not an option. You go through seasons like that. Yeah. But it is kind of crazy. You're not even as old as my oldest kid. So
I'm not.
Yep.
I'm not, which is that is.
So thanks for just exposing my age and your youth. I appreciate that.
Undeniably, I have to do that to ask that question for sure. But it's a really true, incredible thing that should be celebrated.
Yes,
35
absolutely.
years is insane.
Yep.
It's insane. And it's so cool that y'all are still here, not just married together, loving each other, but being a blessing to
and over half of that here at Echo Church in Montana.
Was it 8? You're 18 years now?
18 years now. Wow. So, first 17 in Michigan, and then the last 18 here. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's kind of crazy.
That is, I can't.
It's a crazy ride.
I can't. Wow. I hope, that's. amazing. I hope that my marriage gets 35 years. It will.
It's going to get that and more.
Yeah, and more. But like, that's really, really cool. All right. So now I have some questions about your marriage.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the silliest argument you've ever had with Miss Amy?
You know, this is hard. This one's hard. I knew that you're going to ask me this question. And I talked to my wife about this last night, and we have so many silly arguments.
Wait, pause. Wisdom. Fellas, listen, you hear that? He asked Miss Amy first.
One of our marriage gifts, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, is we fight, man. We have arguments. We have arguments about all kinds of things. Yep. We were trying to, my wife lost some Tupperware one time. Okay. She was sure that I threw it out. We had arguments. We had a 2-year ongoing argument about that until she finally found it. Because I am, like, if someone's going to throw it away, it's me. Like, if you don't use it, lose it.
That's my wife.
But she packed it away and couldn't find it. I mean, we had that. Every time we go in a parking lot, any parking lot, no matter who's driving, we have an argument about what is the proper place to park.
Oh. Are you a front or a back person? We have different
parking philosophies.
Are you a front?
Oh, I'm just get as close as you can.
And park away from cars.
No. So Amy's more like, what feels comfortable today? And so, like, we can spend a lot of time, and we spend a lot of time. Yeah, and so we always feel like we can voice where we need to park when we're in the passenger seat.
So funny.
We still haven't 35 years and haven't figured out, like, whoever's driving gets to choose today. We don't do that. No. So that's,
is funny.
And really, this question should be asked to my kids. My oldest 2 kids, for sure, do the best impersonations of me and my wife when we're arguing. But I think one of the funniest or silliest things we ever got in an argument about, and I'm sure I've told this story at church before, but Amy and I used to live in the Detroit area, and our family all lived up in Saginaw. And Saginaw is a safer area than Detroit, but we were leaving Saginaw to go back on a Sunday evening to Detroit. I pulled this little Pontiac Le Mans into a gas station to gas up before we headed out, and there was a guy inside with a ski mask on. And I said to my wife, it was July, I said, look, some guy's got a ski mask on. It's July, you know? And then I realized, like, he's holding up the place.
Oh, no.
And I thought maybe I could just pull in front and block him. But I was like, that's my pregnant wife in that door. Like, he's going to try to come out. And I was thinking, like, what can I do? And so, like, I actually got out of my car, saw his plates were rubbed with mud, you know? And so he comes running out. I ran up to the counter and said, did he just rob you? And the girl was like crying, yes. So I ran back to my car that was empty of gas, got in with my 8-month pregnant wife, and started chasing him down. And we flew through the streets of Saginaw, right? And like at one point he turned his lights out, and I was like, Amy, get down. Like, I think he's throwing a gun out of the car, you know? And she's like, Jesus, help me. And I am lecturing her. I'm like, if more American citizens would do stuff like this, we wouldn't have these problems. I mean, it was one of the biggest. And she had morning sickness through the whole pregnancy.
Oh, no, that's awful.
So it was like a scene from Cops, right? Like the guy, we chase him down. He runs into the end of a road. Cops are surrounding him. He jumps out of the car, starts running. I jump out of my car. Amy opens her door. I start chasing him. And Amy's throwing up with morning sickness.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. And she let me know about that for a long time. So, you know, and again, back to the fighting thing, they interviewed us both about who he was, what he looked like, what we saw. And I got to go to the courthouse and testify. Amy did not. They did not invite her there because our stories were different. But that's one of the silliest fights we ever had. If more American citizens did stuff like this. And sometimes it devolves into me lecturing, and I shouldn't. But that's what happens, yeah.
Oh, that's...
Yeah.
I'm just not that heroic. I would have definitely called somebody for sure. Yeah. Like, that's insane.
I think that's probably before cell phones, you know?
Did the cops not think that you were running with this dude?
They did not. I mean, we were going down I-75. I mean, he was going 80 miles an hour.
And the car behind him.
The cops, when he turned his lights out and turned back on, I made sure the cops started following, and then I followed the cops behind him. Yeah.
Okay.
It was crazy.
That's insane. I would be worried that they would think I was the culprit. You know what I mean? I
think the lady inside, you know, called in. What kind of car?
Okay.
Yeah, but there was no cell phones.
Oh, that's true.
It was before you were born.
Yeah. They didn't have the big ones?
They didn't. They didn't even have those yet. No.
You didn't have the car phone?
No car phone. Nothing.
Wow.
Nothing.
Pager?
No, she just had the little dial-up phone inside.
That's crazy. Yep. You're a young restaurant. That was awesome. All right, so that is a fun argument to have in a car while your wife is puking. That's hilarious.
It's funny now, but
it's funny. It wasn't funny
it
for
wasn't
years,
funny
right?
then. Yeah.
If you had to pick a theme song, this is a hard question.
Yeah.
For your marriage, what would it be? And would I know the song?
Okay, I think you'll know the song.
Okay.
So I will tell. There's a lot of songs. Some of them I'm not going to say. That come to mind. I will tell you that every time I compliment my wife, which I try to every day, tell her she's beautiful, she always sings the song, Tell Me Lies, Sweet Little Lies.
That's fine.
But I think probably Thinking Out Loud by Ed Sheeran, is, I would say the song, mostly because he talks about when your hair falls out and your knees don't work like they used to. And my wife, marriage is a commitment, right? But my wife still makes my heart go boom, boom, boom.
Wow, sweet.
Yeah, after 35 years.
Wow.
Yep.
That's so sweet.
I would say that song probably nails it for us because we're old.
You're
it's
not
it's about getting
old.
old. Yeah,
I
would definitely say that's how it is for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so sweet, Pastor Paul, man. You're a good man.
I hope my wife watches that part.
That
She told me
part.
she wasn't going to watch.
We'll see. I'll text it to her. Just
all right,
this section
just
right
cut
here.
out that sliver right there.
That's so sweet, man. That's sweet. You're a great man for sure. What is the best piece of marriage advice you've ever gotten your whole life?
Yeah.
Like the one thing, maybe even just the most memorable.
So can I do more than one?
You can do as many as you want.
I got several.
This is yours.
I got several, and actually someone in this room that is unseen on the camera gave me one of the best pieces of advice ever.
Wow.
But I'll just kind of tick through it because, again, this is one of those questions I knew. Joe Sanford, who just makes things roll behind the scenes here.
Yeah, I love Joe.
I don't know how long ago it was. I asked him, I said, hey, I want your best piece of marriage advice, Joe. And Joe, how long have you been married?
7 years.
7 years. Good. You knew the answer to that. That's good.
Yeah, good
7
job.
years. That's awesome. But I asked Joe that, and he said the best piece of marriage advice, he said, is that I'm learning how to love. I need to learn my wife so I can learn how to love her.
Wow.
Because if I never study my wife, or I don't pay attention to her, don't know what she likes or doesn't like, or know who she is, I'm going to have a really hard time loving her the way that I need to love her, in a way that she's going to feel loved. Wow. That was like amazing advice. Jeez. I have a little journal here. I wrote it down in my journal. I was like, this is one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten.
Wow.
And you know,
that is good.
Yes. And, you know, intuitively, you know that a little bit, but like I've thought about that often. That's for anyone, either side of this, like study your husband, study your wife, know them, because, you know, you can think you're loving them the way you want to be loved, and you can totally miss the mark.
Yeah.
You know, so I'd say that was a big one. I think there's a little saying like that I learned way back when I first was married, you know, to keep love brimming in the marriage cup. When you're right or when you're wrong, admit it. When you're right, shut up.
Yeah, dude.
I'm telling
That
you,
one,
that's a golden nugget right there.
I picked that one up like 3 months ago.
Yeah.
3 months ago.
I'm not good at it, but it is a really good piece of advice. The other one, you know, is only for married couples. This is probably the most helpful. No, Amy and I have 4 kids.
Yeah.
And a bunch of grandkids. But this is the most, if a couple has kids, this piece of advice I got from Kevin Lehman a long time ago. And he just said, if you want to love your wife well, love her children well. Ugh. And that has helped me so much over the years. Like,
so
just the better I do at loving our children or her children, the more my wife feels loved.
It's still
true today. It's still true today.
Adult children, married.
Yes, 100%.
Wow, that's cool.
How I love her children, her grandchildren. It just communicates love to her in a big way. And I think, man, if some men could pick that up, it'd be a huge win for them.
Wow.
Yep.
That's actually like a big philosophy of our church too. It's like, man, we want to love kids well because that parents receive love.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's funny because I think it's easy to comprehend that from a church aspect, like in our culture, going like, man, kids win. Why? Yeah. Because like we want to love these kids because that's loving the people that are coming. We're loving parents, but like I've never thought of that with my wife. That's so. That's
great.
And
I know like we could get into the whole Trinity thing, but like how do I love God the Father well? I love His Son well, and I love His kids well, right?
That's so good.
And the better I love Jesus, and the better I love God's children. I mean that, and really. If you boil everything down, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, love your neighbor. Like that's what matters to God. Yeah.
Honestly, Scripture's pretty clear. Like, it's hard to, how can you love someone you haven't seen when you can't love
someone you
like, you
you
like
can't love your own kids or your family or
which is
that's good.
That's wow.
The last one I have, and this is kind of revolutionized my life, is just healthy couples fight. And that doesn't seem like great advice, but it actually is.
No,
like,
that's so good.
I think that so many people think, oh, we fight, we're not healthy, but actually every couple fights.
Yeah.
And healthy couples fight. The difference between mastering marriage and having a disaster of a marriage is how you fight.
Okay.
It's not if you're going to
good.
fight, it's how you fight.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's so good.
So I think learning like how to fight well, like how to start those conversations, how to ask questions. Like, I think you'll master it if you fight to understand the other person.
Good.
I think you make a disaster of it if you try to win the fight.
Win.
Yep.
That's so good.
And so I think that's like the biggest thing that's been a relief, because I'm not joking. My wife and I like we don't agree all the time on lots of things, and I just think everybody does that. But like, you can be very healthy and still have differences. Yeah.
That's so good. Well, I've learned two things already, which is ask Joe more questions about marriage. I sit with you all the time. I need to ask you some questions about marriage, it sounds like. And then number two, like, if I want a healthy marriage, I need to start fighting over parking spots, for sure.
There you go.
That's what,
you learned, you got it. We could just close this out right now. Yeah, we're good.
Well, if you already don't have notepads out, I would do it. I'm literally feeling guilty because I'm like, I feel like I should be writing down things as you talk.
The
That's
really
so
awesome
good.
thing about podcasts is
they're
you can just
recorded.
rewatch
I'm gonna
this
rewatch
and
it.
you can write down some
For
notes
sure.
from that. Yeah.
Oh, this is like genuinely, like, not being facetious. This is great. Like, this is really good advice. I love that. Like, fight to understand. Don't fight to win.
Yep.
And healthy couples fight. I think I use the word debate and argue all the time. And people are like, we're not arguing. We're just having a conversation. It's like, no.
Yeah.
I have an opinion. They have an opinion. And we're talking about it. This is an argument. But arguing is healthy as long as you do it
the
healthy.
right way.
Which is looking to understand my wife.
Yep.
Not beat her down or come out a winner. Someone told me if you win, y'all lose.
Yep.
If you win, y'all lose.
You can win the argument and you lose the war. I mean, and that's, you can lose your marriage.
Yeah. And I think one thing that God convicted me of, and I'm not good at this in marriage. I'm just not. Like, I wish I was, but I think it's something I'm growing in. But it's like, knowing the right answer has little value.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't have as much value as I thought it did.
Yeah.
Because loving my wife is the value.
Yeah.
Knowing the right answer and pushing the right answer on her.
Yeah.
Ends up not being right.
You're like a marital Pharisee.
Yeah, wow.
The Pharisees knew all the right answers, but they were totally wrong simultaneously. Mm-hmm. They missed Jesus. They missed the whole. They missed the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, they were right about legalities or this or that, but they were wrong about the big picture. And I think that's what happens. Yeah.
I wish I would have listened to many pastors in my life, but one of them, Pastor Jovan, is a guy that was really influential in my life. And he told me, DeMar, 90% of the time you're right, but you 100% of the time you say it wrong. Yeah. And if that's not
true,
a picture,
most of us guys. Yeah.
I was like, if that's not a picture of who I am or who I've been as a husband, that's it. Like, and I was like, in theory, what you're saying is great, but did you have to say it like that? But my goal was to win. It was like, we're going to do the right thing, but like my goal rarely ever has been love my wife. And that's something I'm learning and growing in.
That's gold.
This is golden. Oh my gosh, we're not even at the real questions yet. So obviously, we're talking about marriage. And just so you know, his message was on 1 Peter chapter 3, 1 through 7. And he walked through these scripture by scripture. We're preaching at our church verse by verse, which has been so, honestly, my favorite. I've absolutely enjoyed this. And we've been going through 1 Peter, and we're finally a little past. We're taking a break on suffering, which is really good. Yes. And we dove into marriage, which is nice. And I love this topic. But
marriage is not suffering.
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes it is.
Okay, I'm not saying. I'm not going to correct you. I mean, you've been in it longer than me, but I'm like, maybe I'm doing it wrong. No, no, it's a joy. But there's moments where I think suffering looks like submission, which is
Yeah.
not doing what your flesh wants to do, but submitting to the Spirit of God and the
Absolutely.
leadership of the Lord, and that's submitting to earthly authorities, which we've preached on. Then
Yep.
Peter hits marriage
Yep.
and talks about submission. And I think this first part is, and you can speak more to this, but as I understand it, it is speaking towards wives that are married to unsaved husbands
Yep.
and what they should do to get their husbands to come to church or to see Jesus through their actions in the way they are, and to be a positive influence on them, right? Like that's pretty much what this first section is talking about.
Yeah.
And I think we can talk about that specifically, but also I think there's some principles here that husbands and wives in any type of relationship can pull from it.
Yeah.
So,
So, before we jump into that,
Yeah.
so, the whole premise of the message, when we talked about it was, the idea that we're supposed to have a different kind of marriage. We're called to be holy.
Yeah.
Which means different. We're not better than. It doesn't mean we'll have a better marriage than everybody else.
That's tough.
But we are called to have a different marriage.
Yeah.
In that. So there's a gal in our church named Lois, and she kind of summed it up. I was like, Lois, where were you before I
Miss
preached this
Lois.
message? She said she read this line in a book recently, and she said, what if marriage is not God calling us to be happy, but to be holy?
yeah.
And that he's actually using marriage
good.
not to provide your happiness in your life, but to make you more like Jesus.
That's so good.
And really, when we go through this line by line, and that's kind of the point I was driving
That's
at. She
so
just said it
good.
way better than I ever
Jeez.
did. Is that's what makes our marriage different.
Yeah.
The mission of it, the goal of it is, am I going to look more like Jesus? Is my spouse going to look more like
Yeah.
Jesus? And you know what? Even if they don't, I still want to at the end of this. And so, Peter dives in. I mean, the first thing he goes for is he talks to wives, and he spends a little time doing that. And I think part of the reason he spends more time with women there than men, he only, it's a verse in our Bible. The Bible isn't in verses.
sure.
But I think the reason he does is when you go through the submission passages before that, he's talking to people who are under submission or need to be submitted first and in the biggest way, right? Slaves to their masters or employer-employee things. He talks about, coming under Nero and, those kind of things. And then he talks to wives. And wives, for women back then, it was very different. I know that women sometimes feel repressed from Christianity, but actually, wherever the gospel went, it freed women up in a big way.
It's very true.
And it is very true. And that's why
Historically,
Paul even has to address women here, because they feel the freedom now that they have in Christ. And do I need to still submit to my unsaved husband?
Yeah.
Or do I need to, because there's a couple
So
things going on.
good.
One, a lot of their marriages were prearranged. They didn't have a choice. Those
true.
women
It's
were
Judaism. Yeah.
Judaism,
Yeah.
but
Or
also it was
other
not
cultures.
uncommon
Other cultures,
in the other cultures to move up the social status ladder for your father to marry you off to some other socialite. And then the second thing is that the men in every household got to make all the decisions. They decided your religion. They decided how you're going to parent. They decided everything. And so women are trying to figure out, now I'm free in Christ. There's neither Jew nor Gentile, slave nor free, black or white. I'm free. And then Peter's having to write and say, listen, you are free. Yeah. So live as a slave to Christ. And submit to your husband.
May I add to that though?
Yeah.
And I'm glad you said slave to Christ, because if you read the first two chapters of First Peter, that's exactly what he's saying to everybody else.
Yes.
It's like, through your love and reverence for God, your fear of God, what you should do is submit through the freedom that Christ has given you. You know what you do? Submit to earthly authorities. And your Pastor Austin mentioned this, Nero was the earthly authority. He was burning Christians at the stake, and he's going to submit to him even though he hates you. Submit. You need to submit to slaves. Submit to your masters. These are the things that he's saying, and then he's walking to marriage. And then I think Paul, this is Peter writing, but Paul doubles down on this thought process and going, yes, you are made free as a Christian, but let me write this letter called Philemon. And I'm going to send the slave back to his owner and asking for him to grant him freedom. But if he doesn't, you need to go submit, because Christianity is freedom in Christ. But he's asking us in our freedom submission to him to submit to our
100%. And I know it seems like
it's not just wives.
It's not just wives. It's all of us.
It's all of us.
The whole message is that way. And if you get it, if you really think about it, and this seems like you're getting off track of marriage, but it's not, is who is our example? It's Jesus. He submitted to human authority.
100%.
He He allowed them to take his life. He could have called down 10,000 angels, wiped them all out, and said, I'm taking over. But he didn't. He submitted.
100%.
And he's our example. Like we're supposed to. And Peter, who's writing this letter and writing to wives and about submission, on the night Jesus was betrayed, Peter checked out and didn't take the, like, I'm willing to die with you, Jesus.
sure.
Like, and so now he's like, hey,
3 times.
I messed up. Like, we got to have this right. Yeah, 3 times he did that. So, like, this is where it's coming from, because of your love for Christ, and that's where it starts, right? Hey, submit to your husbands, and he's talking to primarily there wives whose husbands are not God fearing, not Christ following. 100%. You need to submit to them, and you're gonna disagree with them because you believe something different. But for the sake of Christ, that you might win them over.
And I I love the Hebrews passage that says that Jesus didn't see equality. We must be like Christ. He didn't see equality with God as something to grasp. Instead, he got rid of it, took on earthly clothes, submitted himself to earthly masters, died on a cross. He submitted to the process of living on earth, and he is our example in that. So now we're talking to wives specifically, and I love that you said this, because they have freedom in Christ. So why do I have to sit with this man that doesn't love Jesus?
Exactly.
And now he's going, you do, because you made a commitment before God that you must uphold, and this is the way you uphold it. And I think this is a lot of caveating before talking about wives, but I think it's important because I love your heart. Your heart is to love people and see them the way Christ sees them. And I don't think that the Bible, especially here, is not communicating anything against women or any damnation. That probably is a harsh word. But you're not lower than men.
Correct.
This is what Peter's asking this specific group of women, but women in general, obviously, but also Christians. This is,
Well, and I think, so...
This is fitting. What he's asking of women is what he's asking of every single Christian. It's just
that's
specific to the situation.
And he's just dealing with the situation that they're in, right? And the idea that the submission piece somehow makes women lesser than it does not. And even at creation, remember. God sees man, and he's like, it's not good for him to be alone. I'll create a helper suitable. And then always, men tend to have this propensity to think that means, oh, you're my little helper or whatever.
Wild.
But here's the thing. God is an ever-present help in time of need.
That's good.
So who's the strong one in that relationship when I need your help?
Good.
And it's the same idea. And I think here, the submission, the idea is, hey, you're free in Christ, but don't use your freedom to just throw that guy out or throw him aside. Use your submission to Christ and to your husband to try to win him over to faith, which is God's goal. Lead him to life in Jesus, right?
That's exactly what Jesus did on earth.
I mean, we can just tell people, oh, you can go to hell then or whatever. But he's basically telling wives, listen, even if you don't have words, you can't use words. If you submit, if you'll come under and say yes to as much as you can, you have a chance without words to win your husband over. Which that's what Jesus wants.
That's what he did.
That's what he did.
Many times. That's who he was, that one people. And let's go through as quickly or slowly as you want the kind of ways that Peter is instructing these wives of unsaved husbands. And I want to make a clear statement here that I think these are principles that every single person should live by. I think we can all draw men, women, especially we're talking specifically marriage. These are things you should live by. And honestly, outside of marriage, these are probably the first one, maybe not, but the rest of them is things that you should live by. So let's do it. The first point that you made was live to lead your spouse towards Jesus. Live to lead your spouse. Is there anything that you want to explain outside of your message?
I mean, we could spend so much time just on this, right? Our whole life. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be doing. That's the mission of our church too. Leading people to life, making disciples. What is that? Leading people to life in Jesus. And I think this passage is just wrought with that idea. So the behavior of your wife. So I can just 35 years, I mean, I've been in church longer than that, and I could recount, even when I was a kid, the difference between women that I knew. Because here's the thing. there's far more women in church than there are men.
Yeah, sadly. Yeah,
Women are just, their hearts, for whatever reason, seem to be more open to come to faith than their husbands. And I've seen it take a long time for men to come to faith. And often their wife is instrumental in leading them toward Christ or moving them away from Christ. And I've seen both.
For sure.
And I've watched women whose husbands are far from Jesus, who don't know Jesus, these women come to church and they only speak highly of their husband, even though he's not a Christian. They don't emphasize the negative in his life. They always emphasize, oh, my husband's so loving, or he works hard to provide for our family. I've watched this again and again and again in my 35 years and all of that in ministry almost, and watched wives who do that for their unsaved husbands are far more likely to see them come to church or maybe come to faith than wives who are always like, my husband's not the spiritual leader in my house. My husband's not this. And they're focused on what he isn't instead of who he is, and I think those things, they get pushy. They get afraid. They're afraid their husband isn't going to come to faith, and then it's going to create all this conflict, and they push him away rather than. So instead of arguing about everything with him or disagreeing, wherever you can be agreeable, agree and be good to him so that he'll come to faith. Yeah. So it is the best shot.
It's good.
Yeah. So
that's really good.
Yep.
I love that you kind of bring up the point that like this is still a common, and I think I said this right here is not just a common occurrence. It's like, honestly, if we look around at church congregations, majority of churches are majority women, and a lot of them are bringing women are bringing their family here and husbands aren't coming.
Yes.
And I actually worked at a church that focused on 50-year-old women. That was the focus because they were more likely to bring more of the family there. Going towards men is more difficult. And like, not that that's, it's a method for sure. But I think it's a sad reality of like where we are, at least in the American church as a whole. And I think that still stands true today. It's like the women is what you genuinely focus on because like social media, like advertisements, even down to merch, all these things are genuinely geared towards women because they're more likely to show up.
And that's why, and again, I don't want to get sidetracked, but we think about, so our church, we try to make it more masculine looking so that when a wife does bring a husband to church, we're not just thinking about the people in the room. We're so grateful for all the ladies, the 100%. Kids, but we're thinking a lot about the people that aren't in the room yet. And we know that wife who's been praying for her husband, trying to live submitted to him, blessing him. We know she's going to try to invite him someday. And we want to be ready to have open arms and be ready to see that guy come in. So
I think that's really cool in a different perspective than some churches. I know some churches agree 100%. I've definitely worked at a church that agrees 100% with that ideal, and I love that we do that here. But also just pointing out the fact that this is a real issue.
It's a real issue.
Many women in the church that are currently here, and where we're gonna keep speaking on. I love that you're saying that. It's helpful. You're going, man. And I think it's also helpful for family. It's like if I have siblings and mom and dad that are far from church that I want to find, or if I'm mom and dad and I have kids that aren't in church, these are live to lead your family to Christ. You have to live in a way, be submissive. Don't be disagreeable.
Don't give up. Right?
Don't be like you're living in sin.
Don't do that. That's not going to work.
Never work.
And in church history, some of the church fathers, like St. Augustine, he tells the story of watching his mom live a godly life her entire life, and his father does not come to faith until the very end of his life. Wow. And there's ladies out there that are going through that right now. They're living that every day. And it's a tearing, right? You're sad. Your spouse is in the same place, but don't give up. You gotta keep living this out. Keep leading the life in Jesus. And men should be doing that for their wives 100%. Too. They should be doing that for their wives.
Of course.
Yeah, all of us.
Men that go to church. There's actually my brother-in-law, shout out to him, Caleb, did a kind of a dissertation, but high school version of it on the role of men in the church, and just talking about how like there's a statistic, I think it's like 40%, 40 or 50% when women bring their family to church, is 40 or 50% that their family will stay in church.
Yes.
But men,
Big.
93%.
Correct.
So the
That's
man
exactly
comes,
right.
his family stays in church 93% of the time for the rest of
Isn't
their
that
life.
crazy? Because not much has changed
crazy.
in history, really, when you think about it and how it works.
So this is still practical.
It is.
Wow.
Absolutely. Can you believe
Yes,
it?
wow. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
I don't want to rush you. Is that
No, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really great. Thanks for sharing that. Live with purity and reverence.
Yeah.
Peter pushes us to live with purity and reverence. Why is it important? First of all, like, what is purity? Are we just talking sexual purity? Like, what is purity? And then what is reverence, and why is that important?
Yeah. So I talked a little bit about this in the message.
Yep.
You know, yes, there's, you know, moral purity and living that way. But there's also this sense, like if you read the passage and kind of dig in, it's a purity of faith. It's and reverence for God and for your spouse. That it's not put on. It's not pretend.
It's real.
It's not fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
So a wife, and again, this is for everybody, but a wife who's like, I have a purity and a reverence, like I'm not faking this toward God. That's very real and deep. That there's just something pure about that your spouse, it might take a man a while to see, but they can see how real this is for you.
For sure.
You know, and that your reverence for God also, your purity and your reverence for God also is good for the man, your husband. It's not a purity and reverence for God or that is bad for your husband. It's good for your husband. And he's like, there must be something to this. I mean, we've all seen this in our life in different areas. I mean, we could use funny illustrations or whatever, but like, you know, when someone's just in love with something or they just can't like help themselves, there's something very attractive about that.
That's my wife, when she leads worship, one thing that many people have said about her is like, it's so pure and honest that it's like so believable.
Yes.
Like, you know, she's not up there faking. Like, you know that she believes every word that she's singing.
Yes.
And it's like, there's something attractive. Like, it's like,
yes.
I will listen to you sing. And she's a great singer, don't get me wrong, but like good singers can only do so much. But like when they truly believe the words that they're singing, it's like, that's why Adele, she's a secular artist. She does so well. When she makes up a breakup album, it's a real breakup.
Right, that's right.
And people are like,
that's
falling in the deep.
And there is,
you know,
so
like,
I
there's
think
something real
I
about
think
that.
the other thing I've experienced here, and I'm not picking on women by any means, but I have seen this, is that sometimes women have used their faith as a way to like take the spotlight or mirror off of them and put it onto their unsaved spouse as the problem for their marriage.
Wow.
And I've watched this with my own eyes in counseling sessions where, you know, my husband's not saved, my husband's the problem, my husband this, my husband that. And then the husband comes to faith, and all of a sudden now the mirror's turned on the wife, like he's also a Christ follower and you're a Christ follower. And then she ditches and she leaves because she's no longer able to like deflect the stuff that's in her own life that she doesn't want to deal with. Lack of purity, lack of reverence. It's always been, I can blame him. He's not here. He's not a Christian. And then when he comes to faith, like her own emotional deficiencies, her own struggles in the relationship come to the surface, and she doesn't have anyone to put the mirror on. And I've seen that happen a lot of times.
I would say, like, for myself in my marriage, that's something that I did like, I've only been married 5 years in May, but like, that's something I did in the first year or two, is like, I would look at Jenna and be like, you're not doing enough, you're not doing these things, like blah, 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 blah. And then like, when she grew in those things, I realized like, it's really me not doing these things.
Like, no.
I am actually not arguing well. Oh, actually, I don't really listen. Oh, I'm the one that's prideful. It's not you. I'm the prideful one. And then when we had Gabriella, I realized, oh, I'm also selfish. And I genuinely don't want to help her. Like, I love her, but man, I don't act like it. Like, it became so prevalent to myself, and as I walk with Christ. So again, he is talking to wives, but like, this is so good for us. Like, we have to live with purity and reverence. Like, it's
got to be real.
It has to be real, because if it's not real, when you hit these real moments, it's gonna crumble.
It is.
It's gonna crumble every time. I love that.
That's good.
Man, I want to this is so good. Your next point is live focused on internals instead of externals, and I love the example you gave in your message. Just like it's. And like you're not saying if the barn don't paint the barn needs paint and paint the barn.
Right,
Like I love that you said that, but like it's not. He's not telling, which I think a lot of Christians get from this is they think they're saying, oh, don't wear makeup, don't wear earrings. My parents, my dad, my stepdad grew up in churches, but they're like, you can't wear pants, you can't wear shorts. They wore skirts, jeans, skirts. Ankle length,
and you're gonna measure those.
To the beach.
If it's not,
they went to the beach with head coverings. Wild.
Yep.
I don't think he's saying
Nope.
that you can't wear makeup. I don't think he's saying you can't wear earrings. Like if you need glasses, put them on, and they can look good.
Yes.
They can be stylish,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
You can do all this. Please brush your teeth.
Yes.
Right? We don't want yellow teeth. You know what I mean? No one ever takes it that far, but I'm just saying. Like, but I'm like, that's not like you can cut your hair. You can do all that stuff. That's wonderful, right?
Yeah.
But so if he's not saying all of that, what is he saying?
Yeah. I think what he's saying is, hey, there's things that are on the surface and then there are things that are underneath. And the things that are on the surface don't matter as much as the things underneath. Okay. The world that we live in makes a huge emphasis on the things on the surface.
That's true.
And I think we do so. I mean, nothing's really changed, right? Yeah. It's like, hey, what can we do? Like, every woman on every magazine has been, touched up in some way. Mm-hmm. And then it just leaves other women feeling like I can never match up to that. Like we've talked about this in culture, right? And God, we know clearly in the Bible, God looks beyond the surface to the heart.
Yeah, that's good.
He looks beyond choosing leaders. He looks beyond, and there's so much more value because here's the thing. We're all going to age. And like things that used to stand up are droop, and what do they call that? Dunlop's disease, where your belly Dunlopped over your belt, your chest drops into your drawers. You know, what I mean, like it's going to happen to all of us. But if you focus only on the outward, and you spend all your time there, and you never focus on the inward as the outward fades, and you can only do so much. The inward gets neglected, and then you get to a point where it's like the only thing that's going to matter. I mean, my mom just passed away. My father-in-law just passed away, and I'm telling you, those are very clarifying moments about what matters. Very clarifying moments, and when you realize, hey, not much out here really matters. What really matters is in here. And that's where the real treasure of a person is, and the real value of a person is. And I don't think by any means, I think God has decorated things in amazing ways. Sunrise, sunset. He didn't have to make it beautiful, but he did. He didn't have to make the sky blue like we all like, but he did. He didn't have to make food taste good, but he did.
That's true.
When they built the temple, he didn't have to tell them to make it all ornate and decorated, but he did. But what matters most in the temple is not what's on the outside. What matters is God on the inside, what's happening there. And what happens in our daily life with all the beauty that's around us if we can never see the beauty of another person next to us. We're missing out. And I think that's what Peter's driving at is like, hey, there's nothing wrong. Like, this is okay, but don't make that your focus. Make the inner beauty your focus.
I have a follow-up question I didn't put here. It's like I did put this. How do we balance this? Like, there's a reality that I live in a world that's so geared towards outward appearance. I've talked to you about this. I struggle with this. I'm wearing earrings. I have dreads. Like, growing up in the cultures that I did, when I grew up Pentecostal, and I think the thought process is very Martin Luther King. Let's dress in a way that we will be accepted by a group of people that doesn't accept us.
Yeah.
Let's cut our hair. Let's do all these things. Let's talk in a way that and I've genuinely struggled with this. And I realized that I can't come here talking like DeMar from the hood because Montanans will understand me. Like if I dress if you know what I mean? Like there's some things outwardly that I have to change for people to see the inside of me. So like talk me through their best way. And I know there's not a complete answer, but like what's the best balance?
Yeah, I think it comes down to like there's way more to DeMar than his dreads, or there's way more and I think if I do something that won't allow people to get past my outer exterior to see what's inside, maybe I'm taking it too far. I'm not talking about just a select group of people.
Okay.
Again, who's Peter primarily looking for? Like, hey, unsaved husbands, people that are far from Christ.
Yeah.
Like, your dreads probably make it easier for a person who's far from Jesus.
Oh, for sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's never them. It's the Christians that have issues.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's the thing, So I think, I think there's an element of this, this can go a couple ways, but the reason I even had a conversation with my wife for the first time is because I was physically attracted to her.
Yeah, facts.
If I was not physically attracted,
Probably wouldn't talk to her.
I'm not even going to say hello, right? Like we're not going to have a conversation. I'm not going to go buy a puppy and then try to meet you. And
that's a
I'm
wild
not going to do all that.
story, actually.
Yeah, I know that's another wild story. I'm not even going to try. And I think God knows that. He wired us. So there's nothing wrong with looking good.
Yeah.
How we are, we know some people are just beautiful or handsome.
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything wrong if you can't get past that to the heart, So I think it's a balancing act. If you spend all your time on the outer and not on the inner, it's a problem.
Yeah, we have eyes for a reason, for sure.
Correct.
But we also need to focus on what's inside.
Yep.
I do love that. Let's do one more question, which we didn't even get to the men section. We might have to do
Can we do? Well, let's do
part two next.
I would
week,
love to spend time talking about.
Yeah, because I would love. Yes. If you listen to this whole thing, we're gonna do one more question. If you listen to this whole thing, going, when is he gonna talk about men? First of all, if you're a man, you watch this and you don't think that you're being talked about, you need to start at 0.
Yeah. Yes.
0.00 timestamp. And then rewatch it because we are. But the men points are really convicting, and I do need a week to really.
Okay.
So you don't say things, and I have to sit down, put my head down, and apologize to Jesus. You know what I mean? So the last point that you made in your sermon, which I really you kind of hinted at. The entire time. Which before we move on, I just thought about this. You put responsibility on the person receiving the relationship, and that's so good.
It's crucial.
I now as a husband need to also see what's in my wife.
Yes.
Not just on the outside.
Yes.
I think there's a two-way street to this conversation my wife, if she only thinks that the makeup she puts on is the reason I'm with her, that's a failed thought process on her level. But if I also think that her value is the way she looks and what she does, how she talks and how she processes all that stuff, and don't see that the love of Christ and the Holy Spirit is working in her, and see the things that she's bringing to me from the inside, I failed as a husband, and I'm gonna have a hard time in 30 years.
Yep, that's exactly right.
I'm gonna have a hard time. Not that she won't be beautiful, but that she'll be different. And if I'm constantly looking for what the society deems wonderful and beautiful, we are going to age out of that.
Yes, we are.
And I need to see why God.
Yes, you are. I already am.
You still look great, Pastor Paul. Okay,
all right.
But I'm gonna get to this point where I'm gonna age out of that, and I'm gonna start looking for what the world deems wonderful, not what God deemed wonderful when He chose her
100%.
As my helper. And I just wanted to highlight that, it is on me to see the inside. It's on all of us.
Water that garden, pull the weeds and water the garden.
100%.
You want the right stuff to grow.
I need to learn how to pull the weeds. I'm learning that. But the water in the garden, I also need to learn that too. Man, gosh, marriage. Okay, so live with faith and trust in God was the last point you had for spouses. So, this is Peter talking to wives with unsaved husbands. And I think, and when you talked about this is what came to my mind, and I want to know what you think on the subject in general. But I think that their faith in God is actually their faith in God changing their husband. You know what I mean? Their faith in God and their trust is, I'm going to keep going until you change his life. And it's kind of on, and I think
I'd push it beyond that. I'd push it beyond that, even that you are going to change his life. But even if you don't. You got me.
And I think that's I think that sometimes is the portion that is disheartening in this specific situation, as I think wives are going, I need to pray to change him. And I need to serve to change him. And I think this is just the way you're supposed to live.
Correct.
And living this way can, and God can have it so that your husband sees And is it more possible when you live this way? Yes.
Yes.
But you're not living this way,
Right.
so your husband comes to church.
That's exactly
And I think
right.
that's like
every woman marries a man thinking she can change him,
Oh,
and
man.
every man marries a woman thinking she won't change. And neither of those are true.
Hey,
It's true, right?
Wow.
And the mission of our
That's good.
marriage is not my happiness. The mission of my marriage is my holiness. That I'm going to keep trusting God. I'm going to be different than the rest of the world. I'm not going to give in to fear. I'm going to have faith in God that even if my spouse doesn't change, you got me, God. And I think that's what it is for women. I think the example that's used is Sarah, and it's hilarious. And I know men probably felt I was a little hard because I said men are idiots, but I'm including myself in that. Like, we do dumb things. That's why we die sooner. We do dumb things. We just don't know. Like, we just don't get it a lot of times. But I just want to encourage wives whose spouses or husbands whose spouses are far from God. And you want to live, like, put your faith and trust in God that he can change your spouse. But also that if he never does, if that doesn't happen in your spouse's life, if they don't give way to God, that God's got you, and that you can live this way, and you will be more like Jesus at the end of this.
Wow.
I mean, Jesus died for us all, but not all of us receive what he's done for us.
That's good.
So you want your spouse to get to the end of their life saying, or realizing in eternity, my spouse did everything they could to lead me to Jesus.
Yeah.
And it was me.
I think that's the hard part. I think society, maybe this is an unfair statement, but I think the idea around marriage is completion.
Yeah.
It's like I'm finding someone that fits as like my perfect other half. And I think what you said is great. Women approach and look at potential, and it's like, okay, I see what you can become.
Yes.
And men are like, I like exactly that.
Yes.
And don't know that
Don't change.
They're going to have kids.
And they are going to change.
The day the baby comes out. You're like, who is this woman?
Yeah.
I don't know you.
What do you mean you don't want to wrestle anymore? What do you mean you don't want to race anymore? Yeah.
It's like, what you mean? We can't just leave? We have a baby.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. But I was talking to someone. I was like, it's funny because it's like one day the baby comes and then suddenly you are the opposition. Like, it's like, it's like, this is my baby. And it's like,
and you're in
so
competition.
Nice.
Yeah. You used to love me. Like, yeah.
But like, I love that you said that. It's like, if my faith and trust is in God, and I do rely, I love the sovereignty of God in this conversation. It's going like, I trust that God has led me to this woman, or I trust that God has led me to this man. Like, and even though we're going through this season, this is the season that God has me in, and I'm putting my faith and trust in him no matter the outcome.
And no saying, I just want to say this clearly. If you're married, there's no going, sovereignty of God. There's no going back and saying, I miss God, I married the wrong person. No, if you're married, you are married to the person God wants you to be married to. You need to figure it out.
100%.
Not now if there's abuse and stuff like that, like there's outliers, right?
Like
but
cheating, abuse.
Don't let your mind go there. And just have faith and trust in God.
That's a really good moment. Thing to mention is like that's where it goes downhill very fast when you start seeing ways out. I think that's when men start cheating. They start seeing ways out and start seeing other opportunities, and we have to look and go, hey.
That's why Billy Graham's wife, I love this. She said, divorce is not an option. We've talked about murder, but never divorce. So
I love that. We're close, aren't we, Joe?
Okay, we're good. We're good.
Well, I'm so we're gonna do a part 2.
Let's do it. We could spend a whole hour on men.
This is not enough. We got to go through the men's section. I hope that this has been such a blessing to you. It's been a blessing to me. And I feel like people would think I say this because you're my boss, but genuinely, I would not move my family from Houston to Montana if you weren't a blessing and a gift of God to our family and to my marriage. Like watching the way you speak to your wife, watching how you treat your kids, watching how you treat me, who I am not your child, but like watching the way you love my daughter, love your grandchildren, like I'm learning so much, and I'm just very thankful to be with someone. Not that I haven't had other leaders that have done the same, but I'm thankful to be here and watching a healthy marriage and growing in a place where you challenge me in mine. You allowed the Holy Spirit to speak to me, but like just having so much wisdom and so much example of what it is to see a godly, not just husband, godly wife, but then godly parents and godly grandparents, which is probably even harder. But just the way you love, like my friend Austin loved him and his family, and I just been able to walk with that closely. I think my favorite stories are listening to Austin, Louisiana, tell me about how awesome his dad was, and I'm so glad I'm able to be here and experience that too.
Thanks to Mark.
So we're thankful to have you here. Can we give it up for Pastor Pastor Paul again? Awesome. Y'all look the same. It's just the beard. I know. It's just the beard. I can't wait till he looks exactly like you because it's coming. I gotta end. Oh, I hit my. Oh, it's buzzing. Is it fixed now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's my fault. Anyway, it's so good to have you. Thank you again for joining us.
Let's do it again soon.
Can you tell them where they can watch
the
sermon?
Oh yeah, you can watch the sermon on YouTube. It's Echo Church MT. Search Echo Church MT. You have to put the MT to find us. You can't find us other ways, but Echo Church MT. And then our sermon is the last one that he's preached. There's a thumbnail up there that shows his face. Okay, now there is another man that looks just like him, but he has a redder beard and it's a full beard. Don't watch that one. I mean, you watch it.
Yeah.
But if you want to hear about marriage, it's not going to be that one. But you should watch it because he's preaching this.
He's a handsome dude.
Yeah, he is. He looks just like you. You know what I mean? I would say it too. But like, I think, please go if you want to reference the message. He goes through all of it. It's 40 minutes.
Yep.
You should watch it and then come back and watch the podcast. Again, thanks for joining us. Thank you.
It's great being with you. Thanks to Mark
and
for
letting
everything.
us do this, Pastor Paul.
We'll do it again soon.
You are the guy that lets us do this, and we're so excited. Anyway, like and subscribe. Listen to it wherever. Share it to people if you enjoy it. Send it to people that you know needs to hear this, which is literally everybody you know in a marriage. So anyway, thanks for joining us.
Awesome.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.